This lets you get to that next level without really sacrificing that profitability. If there's clients that you're having to turn away, if there's people that you're having to put on a back burner for 2 or 3 months of service because you're too busy.
Thanks for joining me on the Millionaire University podcast today. I am your host, Brien Gearin. Today, we are talking with my friend, Mike O'Connor of Nexus Point, where he helps entrepreneurs and business owners become more profitable, buy back more of your time, and scale with international assistant talent. So let's jump right in and welcome Mike O'Connor to the Millionaire University podcast. Here we go. Give us your story. How did Mike O'Connor get where he is today, and provide some context for our discussion?
Yeah, 100%. Like you mentioned, we'll talk about it in a second, but I'm the founder and CEO of Nexus Point. So I focus on helping small and medium-sized businesses scale effectively and profitably using global talent. But kind of getting there was, 10, 12-year roadmap. So I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2011 and did the traditional route that everyone talks about, right? Went to a big consulting company, worked a couple of jobs, was bouncing around, and realized that after jumping from job to job, it wasn't the job issue, it was really me, right? I was antsy. I didn't do well within the confines of corporate structure, and I realized that I needed to get out and do my own thing. So during that time, I started investing in real estate, built up a decent portfolio, and that was kind of my foray into being an entrepreneur and realizing what the global talent pool can do for me. So I essentially it was a portfolio of about 180 units, mostly kind of C and B class, multifamily real estate. And what I did was I created a vertically integrated business off of that. So I started doing third-party management. I started doing third-party transactions, construction, landscaping, anything that really touched the real estate world, I did. So not only for my own portfolio, but for others as well. And for those of you who know real estate, it's a very paperwork heavy, touch point heavy, a lot of moving pieces. And so you need staff and people to scale efficiently. And when I realized that hiring US based for multiple of factors, not just cost, but also quality, it really limited that growth. And so I started leveraging the global talent pool in around 2013 or 2014 to build out my entire back office. Since then, I've invested in a variety of different businesses, helped fund up a flooring company, some manufacturing businesses, and kind of along the way have taken this model with me. You mentioned I moved to Florida from Atlanta, Georgia. Sold my kind of real estate business off to my other partner and really pursued what I find is my passion now, which is, again, Nexus Point. Because I realized so many people would come to me and ask me, how are you finding the global talent? How are you managing them? How are you making sure they're working well? How are you doing all of this? And I realized I had a cool opportunity on my hands to help others, realize the life-changing, element of global talent that I found. So that's what we're doing now.
That's awesome. So, and for those who might not be quite as familiar with, global talent pool and what they can do for you in your business, we're talking a lot along the lines of virtual assistants or VAs, right? People who have different skill sets that can help you do the things in your business that, depending on where you are in your business life, you probably shouldn't be doing, right? You better spending your time being the visionary or operating the business, doing other things that require your time and talent, as opposed to the things that can be done by somebody with those specific time and talents, right?
That's correct. And just kind of jumping into that, right? If we have this really cheesy term that we use, but it really resonates. There's above the shoulder activities and below the shoulder activities. Above the shoulder activities are things that you as the founder, business owner, executive need to be focusing on. It requires your brain, your skill sets, your connections, what you enjoy doing, get passion so that you're hitting that with energy every day. That's, sales, that's corporate strategy, that's high-level hiring, that's, your marketing plan. That's things that you need to be doing and driving. And there's all those supporting tasks, the below-the-shoulder activities, running payroll, the reporting, analysis, meeting minutes, calendars, emails, all the things that they have to get done, but it doesn't have to be you doing it. And you'd be really surprised. I always tell people to keep a piece of paper on their list and be writing down the things every day. We're should I really be doing that? Should I be doing that? Or maybe you stink at it, or maybe you don't enjoy doing it. It makes you dread going to work and, pursuing your passion. And if you calculate how many hours you're spending every week and then month on doing those activities that you could be then reallocating towards strategy, growth of your business, you'd be shocked, right? And so, yes, we're talking mostly about virtual assistants, but again, that's a term that's sometimes overused. Many times people do need virtual assistants, but since COVID, with everyone being so connected internationally, just like, you're in Ohio, I'm here in Florida, and we're talking face to face, it could be the same if someone was in Manila. So if you could be doing this remote, it can be done outsourced. bookkeeping, your general VAs, data entry, research, sales support, social media management. The list goes on, and the talent is phenomenal. So it's a great hack is what I like to say.
Okay. So how did you, we know how you got into the business, but what was it about, I guess, specifically the Philippines? I mean, there's a lot of different countries where there's a lot of talent where, and ultimately the big thing is that you can pay less for the talent and get the same or better results. And for those folks in whatever country they may be in, specifically for you and your teams in the Philippines, what they get paid from you is a very solid living wage in their home country, correct?
100%. Addressing that point first, people are making good money, right? And sometimes it's really good money. The best example I have is you'll find a lot of people that are entering this kind of, we'll use the term virtual assistant just for the sake of being consistent throughout the conversation. They enter this world of being a virtual assistant with nursing degrees because it is a higher and best use of, they're making more money being a virtual assistant for an American company or Australian company or someone in the UK than they would be practicing that in their home country. And so, yeah, there's a variety of different things why the Philippines makes sense. Obviously, people always think about the cost component, right? If you could hire someone that was right next to you for the same cost, of course, you would go ahead and do that. But there's very much the dollar arbitrage play. There's then the quality play. The talent pool out there is phenomenal. These folks are very well educated. They've been learning English since they were in diapers. They have college degrees. And the BPO industry, business process outsourcing, what this is such a big industry there that people are trained up in school. They're trained up in industry to do this. And they're cutting their teeth at places like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, American Express. So they're getting these big corporate experiences that they can then come and take to you as a small business owner. They're westernized in their culture. So even though they're half a world away, by the way, they'll work your time zone. They're very westernized in both how they approach business and how they approach like their personal life and family, and similar to how we are in the States, speaking generally. And then if you look at like the labor force we have in the States right now, baby boomers are retiring out at such a rapid rate, right? There's like a vacuum of skilled labor that exists. And then, in some of the younger generations, their interest in pursuing some of these jobs or the rate at which they would cost, it just doesn't line up. And so you'll find that these folks are very hardworking and very talented. It's not just a cost play.
Very cool. I know in my own business, I've had a VA in the past, and I've explored using the international talent. I haven't personally done it myself, but I know as a business owner, my biggest hang up, whether there's any reason or truth to it, it might just me having a fear of it, having not done it before, but being international talent, right? Like I keep hearing that they turn out great work. The folks in the Philippines or whatever country it might be are hardworking. Everything you just listed. But as a business owner, what is it that you can, how do you, with your clients, how do you get them over that hump of it's all right, like it works and it's fantastic?
Yeah. So, that's why companies like mine exist, right? Because we are the experts in the space and we've got a variety of different things that help overcome that. I equate this to kind of doing your taxes, right? Like if you're a business owner, are you going on TurboTax and filing your taxes, or are you finding a CPA that you trust who's going to guide you well, who's going to give you the right solution, right? So that's the best way to put this. As far as getting over the hump, there's a variety of things that you need to be doing to make sure you're doing this right. And the first thing kind of comes down to understanding what your need is. That gets back to my earlier comment where the term virtual assistant's overused. Like you might be throwing out a job description for a virtual assistant when really it needs to be for a social media manager or a bookkeeper, right? Just like here, you don't just have this blanket admin title for everyone that you're hiring. Apply the same logic to your global talent search, right? And then it really comes down to understanding culturally how you like to interact and engage with someone. Whenever I see this not work, it's typically because there's a communication gap or there's a cultural miss on the hirer and the person that's being hired, right? And you got to look in the mirror a little bit and realize, what are your shortcomings? What are your shortfalls as a manager, business owner? Because no one's perfect. And if you can start solving around that, you'll have a lot of success. So what we do is we typically work with the business owner to help them understand all of these things, right? The objective is then for us to go out and screen, recruit, go through a bunch of resumes to bring you 3 people that make sense, right? And why is it important to see 3? Because then you're getting to feel for different kind of personalities. You reviewed their resumes. We get sample portfolio work if it's a creative space. So there's all those things that are so important in making sure that's successful. And then you got to do some of the more kind of tactical things that are boring but important. You got to do background checks on these people, make sure they're not, criminals. That's a big thing we hear about is security. You should have like a workforce management solution. So we've got one that allows us to check, browsing history, clock in, clock out times, making sure that people are doing what they say they're supposed to be doing when they're on your clock. So a lot of those things, both kind of the softer things and the more detailed things together usually lead to success.
So how does it work with, because I imagine one assistant, one specialist in the Philippines can work for multiple businesses at one time. Is this treated as they have multiple clients at the same time, or is it kind of depending on what you contract them to do? How does that work for them?
Yeah, it depends on what you're contracting them to do. I always encourage people as a business owner to hire full-time because the cost is not that high, right? If you go to an agency like myself, you might be spending $1,700, $1,800. That's like all in with the agency for a full-time 40-hour-a-week individual. You can do part-time. You just need to then realize that if you're part-time, you're getting them for 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week, you have no say in what they're doing outside of that. Maybe you have some set hours. And so as a business, we do mostly full-time. We will accept 20-hour-a-week roles, but it's a very defined thing. You get them from 8 to 12, or you get them from 12 to 5, or whatever that might look like. And you've got to realize that that's your window, and what they do in their spare time is kind of up to them.
So are these folks, are they able to be client-facing, or is this strictly more of a back office type of play?
It's both. With technology being the way that it is today, anyone can be client-facing. Now, I will say you'd want a more experienced person be client-facing, just like you would here. You wouldn't take a kid fresh out of school and throw them in front of an executive that you're talking to at a company. But we have plenty of client-facing roles within our organization, although, some of our leadership is over there. So, people think about VAs as this race to the bottom. We've got VAs that we pay, thousands of dollars a month to. And so it's important to realize that it's not just a race to the bottom. That's another point that I'd like to bring up. People think that because it's an outsourcing, it's in a cost way. How can I go as low as possible? That's another place where people fail. Spend a couple $100 more, 200, 300, 150, and the output will be significant. And then as you kind of go up that value chain, you can find people who phenomenal English. You might find some expats living over there from North America, right? You can get those people that will be able to serve on a face-to-face role with a client and have experience in doing so.
Okay. So you mentioned a common pitfall there. What are some of the other pitfalls that a business owner needs to be aware of when looking to outsource their work to the Philippines?
Yeah. Again, the first thing is it's a cost-saving thing, but it's not necessarily a race towards the bottom. We talked about it earlier. It's understanding your limitations as a business owner and your weaknesses and how to best supplement those and focus on the culture. It's not just the tasks A, B, C, D. The next thing, and these are some of the things that we've talked about, not everyone is a VA. Some people are bookkeepers, social media managers. So make sure you're hiring for that. And then when you hire your social media manager, for example, don't expect them to also be QuickBook experts. I mean, the list could go on. Everyone's heard of Tim Ferriss, right? Who talks a lot about VAs. He makes it sound like a virtual assistant's this magic wand where day one, you come in and this person has transformed your life. To really get to the point, people who have done that, myself included, it takes onboarding and training, just like anyone you'd hire. So you have to have your SOPs put together. You have to spend time training and onboarding. You have to spend time explaining, right? You've got to have your house in order for this to make sense. Don't expect someone to come in and just magically make your life better. Communication is important. Big thing I'm huge on, and again, I could talk about this for hours, but the last big thing I'll say is these are employees you're hiring. They're not commodities. So don't look at this as some burn and churn relationship. Hire someone. Ideally, you do it full time. You ingrain them in your system. They get to know you. And before you know it, they're finishing your sentences for you. If you treat them like a commodity or you're replacing them once a month, you're never going to get any level of success in doing that.
Makes sense. Makes a little bit too much sense, right?
It does. Yeah. It's easy. It's an easy game if you bring it back to as if you're hiring someone right next to you in Ohio. What kind of steps would you go through? What level of expectations would you have? Would you expect them to be driving revenue to your business in day 3? Probably not. You expect them to be a little more of a burden at the beginning than they are an asset. Same rules apply.
Do you have a lot of your clients who will bring on an assistant? Maybe it's for like a pure assistant role, like I need help on the admin side. But perhaps do they screen for possible room for growth in terms of, well, if you can handle inbox, that's in your wheelhouse. But maybe you could also do social media management. Is that something where that really has to be spelled out beforehand? Or are there opportunities where a company, an owner is growing with this assistant and they start delegating a few more tasks as long as that person is comfortable with it and can perform? Do you find that happens a lot? Or is it these folks are, I've got one, maybe two skills. These are my wheelhouse and nothing else.
It very much depends. When you're going more of that general VA role, kind of catch all, which it really is. I mean, you're doing everything from booking travel to doing data entry to research. That's when it gets into that general bucket. You definitely do see people hire for potential. You might say, I hear people say all the time, I only need them for this, but man, the interview was so great. And they talked about being good at Instagram, for example, or whatever. I don't need that now, but it would be awesome to see this person grow into it. So you'll see people, again, increase their budget $100. We're not talking a significant amount here to get that growth potential. And we got some folks who have been working with their associates for the longest time, and they are expanding these roles and responsibilities. And it's cool to see because these people are excited about it as well. Then you also do find folks who, hey, I need a bookkeeper, or I need an outbound caller, or I need a customer service representative. And that is when you start to get someone who's just a little more kind of, this is what it is, and outlining the roles and responsibilities up front is a lot more important because, you know, a customer service rep or a bookkeeper for that only has so much wiggle room, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In working with a company like yours, is it common where, let's say you do hire them for, as a generalist, you're going to manage my inbox and book my travel. Let's say the owner and the associate are like, hey, I can also do the social media management. Is that where there's an agreement in place between the business owner and the associate, or is it an agreement in place between the business owner and, for example, you in Nexus Point, where there's like, okay, we just added this type of task, here's X amount more in pay? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's think of it more about like a time perspective. So if you're hiring someone full time, like they are your employee, you want to see them grow, and they obviously or more than likely want to grow as well. So there's less about the agreement on that, and there's not adding more pay. If you're hiring someone full time to do that role, and they agree that they want to roll into that, and it makes sense for everyone, then that's awesome. I do say having as clear of expectations up front is always important because people know what they're getting into, they know who they're engaging with, they know who they're dealing with. There's no confusion. And then again, it comes down to job satisfaction. If they're not enjoying their work because they're an accountant and you're asking them to make Instagram reels, like they're probably not going to be very happy. And oh, by the way, they're probably not going to be very good at it. It just leads to like a lack of satisfaction. And that's where another area of kind of failure point there.
So do a lot of your clients end up with multiple assistants and associates?
I always encourage people to start off, if you never hired, especially if you never hired anyone, but if you never hired anyone internationally as well, start off with one or two, depending on the size of your organization and your need, and really figure out the process for onboarding. And what you'll oftentimes see is they get it down, they get it figured out, and then they'll hire more, but they'll have that international, again, for the sake of consistency, that virtual assistant hire and train the next wave of people. So it's eliminating from them from having to go through the legwork. But it usually kind of starts off with one or two, and then people will come back and say, hey, this has been so awesome. I want to, could you also do bookkeeping for me? It's like, absolutely. Let's have that discussion. And people start building out the organization there because, again, the cost is fantastic and the quality is as well.
How does a business owner know when they need this type of help? Does it just smack you across the head like a 2x4 coming at you? Or is it kind of like you just end up like maybe you're on that fine line of, well, I can kind of do this myself. There's days where I'm swamped. There's days where I'm not. How does a business owner know when to engage in this type of work?
For me, it smacked me across the face. So when I was in real estate, I remember it would be like Friday night and we were managing our assets and we get a phone call, like a water heater blew. And like you're trying to have dinner with your wife and instead you're talking to a plumber and an angry tenant at 7:30 p.m. on a Friday. So to me, it was like, okay, I've got to get out of this because this is impacting my life and satisfaction. So the first thing I ever outsourced was actually like the maintenance side of my property management and asset management business. For others, it just depends on like their growth desires and strategies. Some people wanted to be a solo entrepreneur, do their thing, be the sole person day in and day out, and they get satisfaction. That's great. For the people who want to grow, this is a great solution. And to me, it's not only just a great solution because it frees you up to do things you like, but it allows you to scale profitably. Like oftentimes when you're scaling your business and growing, it's at the cost of what you're putting in your pocket. So people who have scaled business that are listening to this know as you go through your scaling periods of time, you're oftentimes spending more than you otherwise would like to get to that next level. This lets you get to that next level without really sacrificing that profitability. So if there's clients that you're having to turn away, if there's people that you're having to put on a back burner for 2 or 3 months of service because you're too busy, that's a really good sign that, hey, I could bring someone in. They could alleviate this. I could take that client on now. I don't have to refer that to somebody else. And again, very quickly that person turns cost neutral, if not a profit center, if done properly, just because of, again, the arbitrage play we're playing with, the Philippines currency.
Would you give advice to someone who's an early stage business owner to slowly hire, but get that person sooner rather than later, or wait until that 2x4 is coming down the pike right for your face?
I'm big about being proactive. Again, I got hit in the face and I had to go through the pain of it. And so in some regards, going through the pain is a positive thing in business. So I think we all agree. But I would say getting ahead of it's important, right? Because as soon as you're kind of behind the eight ball, you're behind the eight ball. You're dropping balls with clients, you're dropping balls internally, you're dropping balls in your personal life. Don't let it get to that point. You could hire one of these virtual assistants that'll come in and make just a significant impact on your day. And again, if you are spending time not out selling and growing your business, if you've gotten stagnant, if you're turning away business, if you're putting people on the back burner, like that's a clear sign that you need help and you need help fast. Or if you have the vision where hey, if I just do this, this, and this, that will bring in more business. I just don't have the time to do it. Bring that person in, have them filling some of these other buckets that you're wasting your time on day in and day out. And then you go charge forward and bring that new business in. And then the cool thing about it is the next time you have to do it, you've got someone else who can train, onboard, and bring them in. That burden doesn't fall on your shoulders. So you're constantly now in strategic mode, thinking about the growth of the business. You're not hitting these roadblocks every 6 months where you have to stop, pause, maybe retread a little bit, and then build back up. You'd avoid that entirely.
Are there opportunities for even these folks working their way up to leadership roles in the company? Or is it these are their skills, this is their ceiling, that's where they're happy, and that's ball game?
We've got people in our organization that are in AVP, senior manager level roles that we continue to grow within the organization. I've got people that I hired, maybe not from 2013, but maybe 2015, 16 range at my old company that are still with that company. And so again, this is back to these aren't commodities. These are employees that are looking for a career. We tell every single person that we hire within Nexus Point, and by the way, we eat our own cooking. Our entire back office is global. We want them to be lifers, whether that's 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 10, whatever the lifetime of Nexus Point is, we want them to be with us. We want them to grow. And if there's a role of elevation, we want to look internally first. So this is not just a stagnant role. This is definitely a career, and we treat it as such.
I'm really curious about literally what do you do once you've hired a new associate? Do you take it to the extremes of, obviously you said one main big step is having your SOPs, your standard operating procedures in order. If you don't have those, are these folks who can help you create those? And then do you fly them in? Do you get to know them in person? I know it's all virtual and they live in the Philippines. That's a long flight away, but is that something where, depending on where you are in your business, that you want to aspire to when it comes to building your team around this aspect?
So we do not fly them in, to answer that first point. We do have a client who is considering flying theirs in later this year, actually, though, which is so cool. So kind of getting to the SOPs, as best you have SOPs or standing operating procedures, that's awesome. For any business owner, whether you're hiring internationally, locally, or you just want to have your stuff documented, Loom, Loom, is a phenomenal tool. For those of you that don't know it, it basically allows you to screen grab what you're doing, talk through it with a little video of you, and then it archives it. Awesome training tool because you can then show someone how to do it and then point them to that. So I think every business should have an archive of Loom videos for the things that they're doing. Onboarding and training, it's never fun, right? It takes time. And like we said earlier, people are more of a burden at the beginning than they are an asset because they're trying to learn, they're underwater. So what I always encourage people to do, both for yourself and for others, is don't expect greatness day one. I always have my first week be really slow. Talk to people on the team, shadow me on calls, ask me questions, play around in the reports or the Google Drive or wherever. Just poke around and, take it easy. Don't feel like you need to be burning the midnight oil this first week. And so give yourself some grace and expectation. You got a business that you're still running. It can't be solely focused on this training. Give them some grace and realize that they're learning. But then as far as creating the SOPs, I think that's actually really important. So one thing that we do is we have partner accountability meetings with the client success manager, 30, 60, 90 days and ongoing. But at that 30-day point, what we do is we have that associate that we place create SOPs. We're expanding that into them creating Loom videos. But what it basically is who do I report to? What's my role? What's my organization do? Have this playbook put together so that should they quit or they not work out or whatever that might be, this business owner now has this SOP that's been created and it makes the next hire 10 times easier. So as you're bringing these people on, you'd be crazy not to double efforts a little bit, document everything you're doing. It'll make your life easier in the long run.
I agree 100%. SOPs creation is a never-ending game for me in my business, but I want to drill down, get even more granular when we're talking about these SOPs. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but if your SOPs are out of line, if they're not even present, it makes the onboard process for a new associate really difficult. What are the main things that you've got to document? Is it literally everything you do every single day, or is it just basic systems and processes in your business? What type of details can we get on that?
I think the most important thing is to step back and make sure that people understand what the end objective is. But as far as the big buckets, the big tools that you're using, the big repeatable tasks, the reports that you're doing, the clients you're working with, that stuff's all really important. So our team on the client success side, they have a firm understanding of all the clients that we work with. What's going well? Where are their gaps? What are areas of opportunity? It's important that they understand that the sales team talks to the recruiting team. Hey, here's the personality of this client. Here's what they're looking for. Here's the type of resource, like left arm needs to talk to right arm. So it's not documenting everything, but it's understanding what the end game is and then making sure the big buckets are filled and understood and documented.
Okay. And it can be something as easy as, I guess let's use the example of more of a generalist or an admin person, like making a Loom video, which I use that all the time. So good shout out there. I train when I bring copywriters on or anybody in my business, I literally sit down. If I haven't created a Loom for a specific task, I just sit down, click record, and I talk my way through what I'm doing. And it just makes it a million times easier. So can't say enough about that. But it could literally be like, when we get this type of email, let's say it's an RFP or something, a request for proposal. Here's what I do. You have this template. This is what you click enter template. It has general verbiage. These are the 7 areas that you need to customize for this client using these 7 different, using their name or their phone number or whatever. And then saying, make sure to save as template or whatever it might be, and then click send. And that could be a 48-second video that gets archived in Loom in a folder for how to handle RFPs. That's
exactly right. So I'll use an example of something that I've recently outlined. We've got our sales process. So from the minute that someone books a sales call and it hits my inbox, to the minute that they are through training and that associate starts working for them, there's a lot of things that go on. There's the email, right? So I've got a step in a documentation of, hey, when that email comes in, my executive assistant knows that I'm not looking at it. She needs to take that information and put it into our CRM and put it into our tracker. We have the sales call. She's documenting the notes, creating the job description. We have content on that. She has to send it to this person. And there's all these things that happen throughout the process. And we have an owner of it, like the doer, and then the manager of it, and then backup, right? So I know that if quality assurance on resumes we send out, right? That is our AVP, Rob. He is the manager of that. And Lou on our team is the doer. So I know that every time I'm getting resumes, I should expect that they are 100% buttoned up. And so we have the whole thing systematized and processed with videos. And it's the job description thing. That's an easy Loom video, but it's, hey, here's where you find it. Here's how you input it. Here's the things we think about. Here's the format. Here's where I save it. There's things that go into it. It just makes it so much easier than to repeat yourself 1,000 times every time you hire somebody.
No doubt, for sure. One thing I'm curious about is providing feedback. As a business owner and having worked with multiple assistants before and professionals that work alongside me, feedback is a huge thing that even I've learned a lot from Justin Williams, the head honcho here at Millionaire University. He is a master at providing feedback. And it's not bad feedback. It's constructive criticism to help you grow. But when it comes to managing a team that is half a world away, that is from a different culture, how does a business owner go about providing feedback when it's needed? Is there a nuance to it, or is it just, hey, this is how we need to get things done? Obviously doing it politely and constructively, but what do you see with your clients and the associates that you pair them with and how that works?
Yeah, and so first off, this comes back to that cultural fit that I talked about during the interview process. Making sure that people understand how you provide feedback, the way you do it. Are you very direct? So during the interview, it's hey, when I see something that's wrong, I'm not angry, I'm not upset, but I provide very direct, pointed feedback. Are you will that make you feel uncomfortable? So that's a really good kind of point to hit on as it relates to the interview process where people miss. Because if you're very pointed and this person can't handle that, it might lead to some issues. But then no, it's having that good dialogue, making sure that the people understand who you are and how you're communicating and what the expectations are. That's why we have that 30-day SOP outline, because that creates alignment, or it shows that there's gaps. As long as you can point to examples on either what was done wrong or what was done right and how it needs to be done the same way or different the next time, I think that's important. So anytime I give feedback, whether it's to someone US based or international, it's not just kind of this pie in the sky, arbitrary, like, hey, I'm kind of thinking this. It's no, hey, do you remember that email that you sent yesterday to Sam? Great email. You covered all the points. I would change this last line. Here's why. Here are the impacts that might have in your wording, the ramifications. So as long as you can cite specific examples, and again, I'm big on end game, specific examples, and then here's why. Here's why I'm providing you this feedback. I think that helps a lot. It's important to recognize the positive things too, right? Like I like to publicly praise too when someone on our team does something right and well, because it's just as important as providing the constructive feedback.
Absolutely, because not all feedback is negative or it's not criticism, but it's like, hey, you did, that was awesome. That's exactly what I need you to do. Keep doing that. That feedback is just as helpful as, hey, this was okay, but here's where we need to make adjustments. Both are incredibly helpful. And I think just from a human standpoint, when you get that feedback, it's delivered properly. There's no condescension, there's no anger. It's just purely here to make you better. Then you really can't go wrong. And of course, I come from my own culture. I can't speak for others, but I think that's a good way to go about it and keep everybody in harmony.
I 100% agree. Good communication is important.
Yeah, communication is key. Absolutely. Speaking of communication, do most of your clients and their associates, is it all by email? Is it all by Zoom? Is there by phone? Is it kind of, we're in the information age where we use all our technology. Is it just a matter of how each party prefers to do it?
Yeah, it's a matter of how they prefer to do it, what their business setup is. We provide a few suggestions, right? Having some type of Zoom or Google Meet functionality is very important. I'm a big believer in Slack. Slack's a great instant messaging platform, but what's really cool, you may or may not know, there's a little button at the top where you can hit huddle. It'll immediately put you in a one-on-one face-to-face meeting. So it's a great communication tool. And then I'm big on WhatsApp on my phone. So my assistants will, if I'm in the car at a red light, they'll be getting audio messages from me on ideas that I have. And so it allows me to be supremely efficient. And so having the Loom and things like that are great for training. There's also VoIP lines that you could put on someone's phone. So let's say that you've got a client-facing or a phone-facing role and you live in Dallas, Texas. Well, we could get uploaded on their computer a VoIP line with a Dallas, Texas area code that they can call in and call out from. So again, technology is so advanced, it's nowhere near the hurdle. It's a matter of what just makes sense for you and your business. And then tools like Asana, Monday.com, Trello, project management tools are really powerful as well because it allows for just ease of management, ease of visibility throughout the team.
Right. I know in my business, I use Monday.com, and it is so easy to, especially on their task management side, having the color coding, knowing exactly where you stand in a project. I think it goes a long way, and obviously it can connect with anybody anywhere. So, hey, we're about getting out of time here. I want to make sure I respect yours and make sure we get maximum value for our listeners from Mike O'Connor today. If you had a closing thought, I usually make these they're a little broad and open-ended. You can take it wherever you want, but if you're going to be a business owner who's utilizing international talent, what is the number one thing that you need to take into consideration in order to get this done?
Yeah, I'll send you these notes and you can perhaps put it in the show notes, like my kind of 10 tips that we kind of talk through. It's like, which of the 10 do you want to choose from? I think the two big things or three big things, if I could kind of cheat and give you three. It's one, realize what you're hiring for and hire for that. Not everything's a virtual assistant. Two, these people are employees, not commodities. Like look for long-term, look for consistency, look for alignment. And then three, just remember, it doesn't have to be a race to the absolute bottom. That's not the play. There's cost savings there, but make sure you're focusing on quality and finding the right rate for the right person. And that's where you'll find the sweet spot for, success and output from whoever you're hiring.
Well, Mike, I want to make sure our listeners are able to check you out online and reach out to you. What is the best way to get a hold of you and the best way to check you out on the old interwebs?
Yeah, you can find us at nexuspt.io. On there's a booking call link. If you want to schedule time, you can email me at mike@nexuspt.io. Or if you just want to schedule time, it's nexuspt.io/calendar. It'll take you right to my calendar. You can find some time. I'd be happy to chat with you and I'd love to hear from you.
All right. And is it where if any of us call in, we can just kind of have like a discovery call to see if it's a good opportunity or if it's something our business truly needs?
100%. Conversations are free. It'll take you right, show you all my availability. You directly book it there. You'll get a meeting invite. We do a face-to-face Zoom or over the phone, whatever makes most sense. And, happy to talk to anyone who's interested in a conversation.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Mike, thanks again so much for your time and your knowledge today. I think we dropped some serious value bombs in here. So I'm sure listeners will be able to take a lot of it to the bank and start scaling their business.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Brien. It's been a blast.
My pleasure, brother. You have a good one.
All right, buddy. You too.
Mike really dropped a lot of value today and giving us actionable advice in the international talent pool and how we can use that to our advantage as business owners and entrepreneurs. I think the biggest takeaway for me is the ability to buy back our time. We got a ton of value and information on how we can utilize virtual assistants in our business and from the international talent pool. We are in the information age, and there are talented people across the world who can help us achieve our goals. So thank you all for joining us on the Millionaire University podcast today. As always, hit us up on your preferred social network. We'd love to hear from you, or send us an email at support@millionaireuniversity.com. We are always excited to connect and chat with you, our loyal listeners. So with that, I'm Brien Gearin signing off today. We will catch you on the next episode of the Millionaire University podcast.